The drama surrounding Cleveland Browns offensive coordinator Tommy Rees' comments about Shedeur Sanders' development has set the stage for a deeply frustrating and revealing narrative about how the young quarterback is being mishandled by the franchise. At first glance, Tommy Rees' press conference seemed like a standard moment of coach speak, where every answer was carefully crafted to sound like a responsible, supportive message about a young player's growth. However, hidden beneath the surface of his carefully chosen words and vague responses is an alarming reality that paints a much darker picture about Sanders' future with the team. Rees began with the usual talking points that all offensive coordinators use when discussing the development of young quarterbacks. He talked about building confidence, tailoring game plans to fit their strengths, and helping them settle into the system. These are all basic principles, ones that most NFL teams follow when introducing a young signal caller into the league. And at first, Tommy Rees seemed to be on the right track. He spoke about the importance of comfort and trust in the quarterback position, emphasizing the need to give players plays they're familiar with and can execute confidently. It all sounded well and good. After all, no coach wants to throw their young quarterback into the fire without adequate preparation. But as Rees continued, things started to feel off. When the conversation shifted toward the expectations for Sanders in his second start, the cracks began to show. Rees was careful, almost overly cautious, when asked about the impact of a full week of first-team reps. His answer, while nonchalant on the surface, seemed more like a calculated attempt to manage expectations and create a safety net for a potential underperformance. Rees was quick to say they don't want to place any heavy expectations on Sanders, especially given his lack of experience, and that the focus was on process rather than immediate results. At face value, this seemed like the right approach. Coaches don't want to heap undue pressure on a young player. But dig a little deeper, and it's clear that Rees was already laying the groundwork for an excuse. The focus wasn't just on the process. It was about minimizing the risk of failure by lowering expectations for Sanders before he even stepped onto the field. The most glaring issue came when Rees reflected on Sanders' debut against the Baltimore Ravens. While he acknowledged the difficulty of being thrown into a game as a backup quarterback, there was a tone of admiration in his comments. Rees praised Sanders for his resilience, his ability to stay composed, and his willingness to make aggressive, downfield throws. These are qualities that any offensive coordinator would love to see in a young quarterback. But here's the rub. If Rees genuinely recognized these strengths in Sanders, his ability to stretch the field with a powerful arm, and his potential to make game-changing plays, why wasn't he being given more opportunities to develop that very skill set? Instead, Sanders had been forced into a hopeless situation. He was thrown into a game with virtually no first-team reps, no established rapport with the receivers, and an offensive line that failed to execute basic protection assignments. Yet, somehow, Sanders was expected to be the one who had to prove himself in these impossible circumstances. It wasn't just the rookie quarterback struggling to keep his team in the game. The entire offensive infrastructure was failing him. The offensive line was breaking down under pressure, receivers were dropping critical passes, and the coaching staff seemed more interested in managing expectations than fully committing to Sanders' development. The result was that Sanders was being set up for failure, not just by his own mistakes, but by an organization that wasn't properly supporting him. Rees even acknowledged that part of the struggles Sanders faced during his debut weren't his fault at all. The offensive line was a mess, players were missing assignments, and the team's failure to execute their basic responsibilities left Sanders exposed to pressure and blitzes he couldn't handle. And yet, despite this, it was still Sanders who was being evaluated as though he was the primary issue. It's incredibly telling that the young quarterback's lack of preparation, combined with an offensive line that couldn't protect him, were not enough to merit any real understanding from the coaching staff. Instead, the narrative was being framed as though Sanders was simply not ready for the moment, which, in reality, was an unfair and deeply frustrating assessment. The question that needs to be asked, then, is simple. If Tommy Rees sees Sanders' immense talent and recognizes his potential to make explosive plays, why isn't the coaching staff doing more to develop that potential? Why are they allowing Sanders to struggle in a broken system, while Dillon Gabriel, who has been given the majority of the first-team reps, has had all the opportunities to grow and yet hasn't produced a significantly better offense? The disparity between Sanders and Gabriel's development opportunities becomes all the more glaring when you look at their contrasting playing styles. Gabriel, who had been the team's primary quarterback, is a conservative player by nature. He takes the safe, low-risk options and avoids making mistakes, but this approach hasn't led to any real success on the field. The Browns' offense currently ranks dead last in the NFL in first down production, which is a catastrophic flaw for any team trying to win football games. Meanwhile, Sanders, who plays with confidence and is willing to take risks, has shown that he has the ability to create explosive plays that could turn the tide for the offense. He's the kind of quarterback that a stagnant unit needs to spark a real change. And yet, despite all the evidence that Sanders' playmaking ability could be exactly what this offense needs, the coaching staff continues to put its faith in Gabriel, a quarterback whose approach has not moved the needle. One of the most revealing moments during the press conference came when Rees was asked directly whether he would still prefer to see more of Gabriel moving forward. His answer, loaded with subtext, made it clear that despite everything Sanders had shown in limited action, the coaching staff remained committed to Gabriel's development. Rees spoke about focusing on the process, acknowledging Gabriel's improvements, and sticking to their plan for player development. This wasn't just a neutral answer. It was an answer that revealed the Browns' true allegiance. Even though Sanders had proven that he could make the kind of plays that could transform the offense, the coaching staff was unwilling to make the hard decision to commit to him as their starting quarterback. What this entire press conference exposes is the underlying dysfunction within the Cleveland Browns organization. Tommy Rees and the coaching staff are clearly impressed by Sanders' abilities, yet they remain unwilling to fully commit to him. Instead, they're hiding behind vague talk about process and development while continuing to push Gabriel, despite his lack of success. The situation feels almost like a sunk cost fallacy at play, an unwillingness to admit they were wrong about Gabriel and fully embrace the more talented, more dynamic quarterback in Sanders. The most frustrating aspect of this situation is that Shedeur Sanders has done everything asked of him, even when the odds were stacked against him. He entered a difficult game against a tough defense, with little preparation and even less support, yet still showed resilience, poise, and the ability to make spectacular throws. He kept the Browns competitive, even when the team around him was failing. And yet, for all of his talent and potential, he's still not being given a legitimate chance to prove himself as the starter. This is an organization that seems intent on keeping Sanders in the background, despite the clear signs that he's the player who can take this offense to the next level. Browns fans deserve so much better than this. Shedeur Sanders is being mistreated by an organization that refuses to acknowledge his potential and continues to prioritize a quarterback who has done little to show he can lead the team to success. If you're as frustrated by Cleveland's mishandling of Sanders as we are, smash that like button right now. This young quarterback deserves a fair shot, something he will never get in Cleveland. Let us know what you think about Tommy Rees' carefully worded responses, and whether you believe Shedeur will ever get the chance he deserves to start. Make sure to subscribe for more updates on this story, and join the conversation as we continue to follow this frustrating saga. The reality is simple. Shedeur Sanders is a star in the making, and Cleveland's loss will be another team's gain when he finally gets the opportunity to shine.